What's up guys, Coach Az here. We've had a question from one of our subscribers. I'm going to read it out because I think it might apply to a lot of you, so hopefully it will help you out. Hey coach, I've been training Muay Thai for 6 months now and love it. Recently I got invited to the sparring classes, which is something I've been striving towards. However, I very quickly realized that I have a real issue with hitting people. Not a technical issue, but a literal mental block. I feel like there's a force field around them and I pull every single shot. Any advice on how to get past this? Keep up all the great content. Well, thank you, sir. You didn't leave a name, but I really appreciate the love and the support. Very, very common. Yeah, what you're dealing with here is very normal. Don't judge yourself too much about it. Let's go through it. Let's break it down. Really common for people who are new to sparring. If they've never done anything like this before, we see it a lot with kids, but it definitely appears in adults as well, where you're so pre-programmed as a well-behaving member of society that hitting people and hurting people is bad. It's not something that you should be doing. And that can get really ingrained in you to the point where even when you are fully aware that we've got gum shields in, head guards on, big fluffy gloves, you don't feel like you can touch people with your hands, and you get concerned, mostly subconsciously, about the consequences if you were. And that whole attitude of I don't want to hurt anyone, that's kind of like a faulty programming in this sense, in terms of putting it into context of what we're doing, which is sport. And this is the issue that most people have with sparring. If you look at anyone's problems in terms of getting into a rage or getting upset or getting emotional, it's because they've failed to separate life, which is, if you got in a fight outside of the gym, life, and sport, practice, what we're doing here. I spoke in another video about how with the kids especially, we always use the analogy of football or soccer for any of our American viewers, because I always want them to relate what we're doing back to a game. I don't want them to think of fighting. I want them to think of the game. And in football, the game is score goals, don't let the opposing side score goals. So our game is hit your opponent, don't let your opponent hit you. If you do that, you're going to win the game. And even as adults, I think this is a real useful tool to use, because if you just go into sparring with no context of it, it's very normal for your natural instincts to kick in, your fight, flight, freeze mode. And when that takes over you, then you get issues like this. So what you're dealing with there effectively is a mixture of flight and freeze. You know that you should stand there and fight, but your instincts are taking over and telling you, but I don't want to engage in a fight, so I won't actually touch you. And you're fighting with these two sides of your mind. So that's the first bit of advice, is come to terms with the fact that what you're doing is not fighting. It's a game, it's exercise, it's training, and you are two consenting adults. Yeah, or even if you're younger than that, you are there, I hope you are there, because you want to be there, because you want to be doing it. And the person standing across from you is the same. So you're both up for it, for a start. Now, some practical advice for getting past this. Firstly, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but go spar someone a lot better than you. A lot more experienced than you. Someone who in the gym, ideally, has been hit hard, maybe even knocked out. Because for them, they are going to invite you to hit them, and they're going to have absolutely no issue with it. Because what you need to get past is the idea that when you hit someone, something bad is going to happen. And more often than not, it's not going to happen. Actually, what ends up happening, especially if you're a beginner and you hit someone more experienced, if you're in a nice gym environment, they'll often go, good shot. Yeah, nice. You're starting to get it. Yeah, and they'll hopefully egg you on. Like, we make a real point, especially my coaching staff, of if they land a shot on us, whether we allowed them to or they actually managed to pull it off, we will pause for a second and touch gloves with them and go, yeah, nice. Because we want to reinforce that habit. We want to reinforce that idea that, that you're actually getting better at the game. You're doing a better job of it. So spar people more experienced than you. Explain to them before the round starts that that's your issue. Like, get them to the side and go, look, I've got a real issue with actually hitting people. So could you egg me on a little bit, help me to get it. Like, you're not going to ask them to put their hands down and go, hit me, go on, hit me. You've seen that happen. But that's not what I mean. But you want someone to basically give you permission to stand there and say, yeah, go on, it's okay. Tap me in my head guard, tap me on the body. I can take it, I can handle it. The huge thing, of course, is to separate your emotional brain from it. To not be sitting there going, I don't want to hurt people, because that's not the objective. The objective is to play the game and to win the game. And that involves getting close enough and hitting somebody. Also understand that they're probably hitting you. So if they're hitting you, you have a kind of moral obligation almost to protect yourself within sparring. It wouldn't be fair on your partner if you're standing there putting your hands down and quivering away, and then they're going to end up giving you shots that are unnecessary. So you got to owe it to yourself to protect yourself and to your partner to play the game properly. But I understand that it's more easier said than done. It can be difficult in order to do. Finally, I'd say just understand that these things take time. So you've recently been invited, it's your first session there, it's your first couple of sessions. Your brain will take a while to adjust to the new environment and to adjust to the new parameters of what's allowed. It's very different hitting bags and hitting pads because you know there's no risk of injury to anyone, there's no risk of upsetting anyone, everything's going to be cool, everything's gravy. But when it comes into sparring, what the intangibles, the things that you don't know, the variables are how they're going to respond to you hitting them. Are they going to laugh it off or say good job, or are they going to start trying to come back at you even stronger? I asked a question last week of one of our subscribers, or I think I made him a subscriber by answering it, where he said that he gets scared to go hard because he knows that they're going to come back even harder. And again, it's like he's getting himself into that mental space of the whole what ifs, and then he's blocking himself from being able to improve. So you need to separate those two areas of your mind. Don't feel like you have to worry about the what ifs because you're not going to know unless you go there. And my final bit of advice for it is get a sparring partner who really understands how to go light, so that there's no risk of what we call the Jenga effect. The Jenga effect is where you're each pulling out a piece and it's getting more unstable, or in sparring it means one person hits a little too hard, so then the other one hits even harder, and the other one even hits even harder, and you don't want that to happen, so you'd rather just not make any contact at all. So to avoid that whole situation, get someone, and again, before the round, go, look, I've got this real issue with making the contact at all. Can we just do a real light technical round so that I can start getting used to being at the correct range? And that's a big part of it as well. You might think that you're trying to hit them, but you've just got such a poor understanding of range because you're new to it, that although you're throwing that jab, you're not getting as close as you think you need to be. Maybe you thought you need to be that close because when you were doing pads and they hold the pads out in front of them, you've got it as a frame of reference that you throw that jab, it's going to hit that pad. But you've got to remember, if that pad's there and their face is here, you've actually got that much space that you still need to cover. So part of it is probably still just adjusting from going from doing the pad work to coming into the sparring. Man, I hope that was helpful. Don't get disheartened by it. Everyone, when they start sparring, realize just how awful and useless they are, but you just got to stick with it because the improvement and the progress just comes with time. So keep it up. Well done for sending out the message and reaching out. I hope that's been helpful to some others who are on the channel. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.